Alright, now that you and your players have both put hours of work to write and flesh out your characters and a world to play Dungeons and Dragons in, it is now time to try and kill their characters in any way possible. And the easiest way to do that is with combat. But in all seriousness, Dungeons and Dragons is nothing without the Dungeons and the Dragons. The threat, the constant challenge that is imposed onto your players and their characters that makes everything happening in the game mean something. And so today we are going to be discussing the dragons of the Dungeons & Dragons and begin talking about writing combat encounters. Specifically, we will be talking about when and where to have combat and how to make combat mean something. So these questions may seem important to some and of no interest to others. Many people play D&D with one or two planned encounters that they put together and then fill the gaps of each session with 3 or 4 random encounters. And personally, I don't blame them. Even the Dungeon Master's Guide puts a huge emphasis on random encounters. But me personally, I hate the idea of using random encounters in my game. I have spent all of this time writing a believable world with diverse and interesting characters that all move and live and act for the immersion of the players. And now, as the players walk to the blacksmith, a random group of bandits is just gonna jump out from nowhere and have a Final Fantasy back and forth fight with the party? I don't think so. In my opinion, random encounters are a beautiful tool that the Dungeon Master can use for inspiration. If you want to have a combat as the players walk to the blacksmith in order to show that the city has danger around every corner, that is fine. But roll that random encounter before the session as you're writing, and take those 5 bandits and give them a backstory, a reason to attack the party, and perhaps a diary where if the party reads it, they can go to the bandits' hideout and score some extra gold. Every combat that you throw at your players should be at a time and a place decided by you with intent. Combat is a powerful tool that DMs have that allow us to drain the party's resources, add to the tone of our worlds, and add a bit of excitement to the game. But when you have a combat encounter, after every social encounter, your players are going to get drained and lose sight of what's happening in the game. They will also become desensitized to the thrill and excitement of combat. And if you have a combat encounter every other session, players are going to get pretty bored of just playing their characters. And they're going to fantasize about all those awesome combat abilities that they have but cannot use. So in my opinion, having at least 3 and no more than 4 combat encounters for an average session is a perfect number. And if you want to have a more roleplay heavy session, 1 or 2 combats will be perfect to keep up the excitement for players. And as a warning, if you're going to have a heavy combat session, you really can't go over 5 unless you and your players are super stoked about fighting and sitting down and rolling dice. But now that we know the when and how many we should have, we need to know where to have these combats. The answer to where is pretty simple. You can have a combat wherever you want. Town square, a bar, on a rope bridge over a death drop, or at the mouth of a volcano. It really doesn't matter. Any of these places are perfect as long as you make them interesting places for combat. You can do this with chairs being used as improvised weapons, fruit stands being taken advantage of for the perfect cover, a bandit chopping down the rope bridge as the players sprint across, or a race for the high ground as the lava begins to rise up from the volcano's mouth. You can have combat anywhere, but to make combat anywhere interesting, you have to fill that combat arena with differentiating, fun, interesting tools and obstacles that not only the players, but the combatants can also use to their advantage. You see, it isn't the location of the combat that makes it interesting, it is what you put into that location that makes that location interesting. So use what you know about where your players are and make them move, think, and use that location to their advantage. And the best way to do this is by having their enemies do the same. It won't take long for your players to monkey see, monkey do if they can't hit the enemy in 2/3 cover behind a bar. And them personally, they are getting ripped apart standing in the open. Your player is going to duck for cover and have a more interesting combat. And if your players are smart, it won't take them very long at all to realize that all the alcohol above the enemy's head is very flammable, and they have firebolts. This is why planned encounters are important. Put a fight anywhere, and a good enough dungeon master can turn a fight in a medieval Chuck E. Cheese into hours of bloody fun for the whole party. So, planned combats are the way to go. They are exciting and fun, adding layers and strategy to the game with the fear of death imminent. But why would someone or something want to kill the party? Because in reality, most people would rather do anything than kill another person. Of course, a wild animal could kill for a number of reasons, territory, hunger, or anger, so if your party was fighting a wild bear, this question wouldn't matter. But most of the time, the party is fighting another human being, and murder is a step that most people often will never take. Even thieves often will ask you for your money with a threat of violence, but remind you that they don't want to hurt you. They could just as easily attack from the shadows and most likely win with surprise, but they don't because they don't want to hurt another person. And this is another reason why I don't like random encounters, because unless a person has something genuinely wrong with them, they wouldn't attack randomly. So when planning out your encounters, always give those NPCs that are combating the party a reason to attack. Whether that be defending what's theirs, getting revenge, or doing their job, or even stealing from the party, a combat should have a reason behind it to give it meaning. But a combat also shouldn't always mean instant death for the party upon failure. If a guard is trying to subdue the party for breaking the law, they most likely won't turn immediately to murder, even if the party has murdered someone in front of them. Most likely, the guard is going to subdue the party in some way, either trapping them or beating them into submission, knocking them out without dealing a killing blow. Both of these will surely add meaning to your combats beyond the challenge of death. It can land your party in prison or leave them without gold or weapons, taking your story in a new and interesting direction, along with punishing the party for failing combat without killing their characters. And if the combatant NPCs do have a good reason to kill the party, make it known to the party what that reasoning is. If the party is ambushed by evil cultists working for the big bad evil guy, have the cultists shout out the big bad evil guy's name. Or if the party is attacking another group of people, maybe bandits that the party has been hired to take care of by the local government, have the bandit cry out in anger when the party kills their friend, and show that as the switch from this being a fight to the fight to the death. Writing in this way allows the world to feel even more real to the players and hopefully lead them into a direction of acting with some sense and not killing indiscriminately. Write a world where murder is the last option for many people, and you'll see how quickly your party will turn from murder hobos into an actual adventuring party of heroes. And in this world you have written where murder isn't rampant and the party and their enemies refrain from dealing that killing blow, you now have the perfect tone where the rampaging orcs are a real scary threat to your party, and the big bad evil guy with an undead army that is burning down cities is downright terrifying. So use combat as the tool that it is and make it mean something to your players and your story, and watch your D&D games improve because of it. If you guys are interested in seeing how I actually write out a combat encounter, let me know in the comments and I will definitely make a video on that if you want. But for the next video, I will be discussing boss combat encounters because they are genuinely a completely different beast, and I'm very excited to talk about them. Anyways, please consider subscribing to the channel. It is growing like crazy right now, and if you enjoy the content, subscribing is the best way to help me out. Please share this video with your fellow D&D players. That is another great way to help me out. Alright, I'll shut up now. Have fun playing D&D, everyone.